All right, this is the third part of the scale and spatial illusion section. We're going to talk about illusion of motion today. Okay, stillness and arrested action. So even in a room where you're standing completely still, not moving, there is still going to be something happening around you. It could be the air conditioner blowing, it could be a bird in the window, it could be an airplane flying overhead. There's some sort of movement going on around you, so even when we're perfectly still. So in this painting right here by Johannes Vermeer, entitled The Kitchen Maid, it feels really placid and peaceful and beautiful, and yet she is pouring out a pitcher of milk, and so there's milk or cream that's flowing out of that pitcher the entire time. And we can kind of imagine it, but still it feels very static and still. But there's movement. There's movement going on there. Okay. So kinesthetic empathy is a mental process in which the viewer consciously or unconsciously recreates or feels an action or motion they can only observe. So when we look at these two girls jumping rope over there, whether you've jumped rope or you haven't, you know what's going to happen next. Their feet are going to hit the ground, they're going to jump up again. We can kind of feel the movement based on the action that they're doing. So whether it's unconscious or conscious, you know what's going to happen next. So this is very similar to anticipated movement. So the implication of movement on a static two-dimensional surface caused by the viewer's past experiences with similar situation. So again, whether you've played baseball or watched it on TV, I mean, you maybe don't even have to with this image. You know that that ball is going to hit that bat and that it's going to hopefully go all the way over the fence. I don't know. Okay, but we know what's going to happen next in this scene because we've been there before. All right, ways to suggest motion. So repeated figure. Repeated figure is a compositional device in which a recognizable figure appears within the same composition in different positions and situations so as to relate a narrative to the viewers. So this is a page of a book from a graphic novel called Blankets by Craig Anderson. And in this, we can see that there's two figures. They're out in a snowy night. They're looking up at the sky, and they're kind of getting closer and kissing and cuddling. But we can see that they're kind of going through this conversation and moving slowly. And so if we looked at each one of these little snapshots alone, we would maybe be able to anticipate some motion or something like that, but we really feel the motion and the time that's going through all of this. We can kind of see this little arc of a little movie in our mind. So repeated figures create a lot of motion. All right, another way to suggest motion is cropped figure. So in this piece we see by Robin F. Williams called Salad Lover, this figure is just crouched down and was just standing up, or is doing the reverse, was crouching and is just about to stand up. But one way or another, there's some movement going on. We can see this by the fact that she's so kind of tightly contained in her frame. There's no way she can stay squatted in that position for much longer. She's going to have to get up and get out of that frame and go somewhere else. So by kind of giving her this small little confined space, it's allowing her to kind of move into a new area. Another way to suggest motion is blurred outlines. So in this figure of this runner we see there's this whole kind of series of motions and blurs behind her, and we can see where she came from and the last action that she had. So this is by using an open shutter speed, but it's definitely something that can be recreated in a painting or a drawing. So blurring your outline creates a lot of feeling of motion. All right, so this is kind of another example of blurred outlines. So this is a series of works called Haystacks by Claude Monet. And so in each one of these paintings that took place from 1890 to 91, the artist would go outside and do these plein air paintings, and they would be of the same haystacks in this field from different angles, different locations, but most importantly, they were from different times of day. So what the artist was capturing was not necessarily the specificity of these haystacks, but it was the idea of how light changes them, how the color of the light and what time of day it is and what the weather is can change the actuality of how we perceive these haystacks. So the blurriness, the color of them, the figure of them all play into that time of day. So we can see the sun setting or rising. There's really like a lot of movement of time just based on the color and the light. But blurriness definitely too. Ways to suggest motion. So this is a car called Godzilla. It's a custom car. It's a 1948 Cadillac that was made for Billy Gibson, who's the lead singer of ZZ Top. And this car already looks like it's moving even though it's sitting still. So these shapes that are almost teardrop, these kind of lines that are really kind of going from one side of the frame to another, really give this feeling of motion through space. So there's a certain types of shapes that give us a lot of motion too. Another way to suggest motion is multiple images. So multiple images is a visual device used to suggest the movement that occurs when a figure is in a sequence of slightly overlapping poses in which each successive position suggests movement from the prior position. So we see this dancer over here, and we can see where her arms started and where they're going. We can see where her leg was. We can see kind of the arc of her movement in that dance. And it's based on these kind of multiple images laid on top of each other. So in the comic book, there's images that are right next to each other, but these are all stacked right on top of each other, creating this feeling in just one figure. All right, line of force. Line of force is lines that show the pathway of movement and add strong visual emphasis to suggestion of motion. So we see these lines of force in her legs and in her arms. All right, another great example of this is The Nude Descending a Staircase from 1912 by Marcel Duchamp. So on the left, there is actually, this is the photo that he used to kind of create the painting on the right. The painting is the artwork. The photo that I'm showing you is just an example of something that he used behind the scenes. So what he did was he took this kind of time-lapse, the stop-motion-y photo, and then he painted it. So in this painting on the right, we see blurred lines, we see repeating figure, we see just a ton, very tight cropping, there's lots of horizontal lines, there's just lots of motion. This whole painting on the right isn't necessarily about a particular person in a particular time, but it's about the idea of moving, a body moving downstairs and how that would look. All right. Thank you.